This is a short, brief overview of what you'll find here on the home page. If you notice, there are three categories. One is called the Book of Nature, the other is called Health Hints, and the other is called Bible Bits. And basically, it takes a look from three different angles, three perspectives at the world in which we live. You know, many of the laws that govern our bodies, our health, that govern spiritual things, biblical principles, and that govern nature, you know, you can apply them in all three places, in health, in nature, and in the Bible. And when you do that, you get a perspective that you can't see if you only look in one direction. An example would be reaping and sowing. Now, my wife and I, before we were Christians, many years ago, she was kind of a spiritualist. I'm a redneck hippie. And we had a saying, you know, hey man, you reap what you sow. Well, that's a biblical principle. That's Galatians 6 verse 7. Whatsoever a man sows, therefore shall he also reap. Well, that's true in the garden. If you sow watermelon seeds, you get watermelons. If you sow tomato seeds, you get tomatoes. But it's also true in health. If you smoke, you increase your chances for lung cancer. You know, all the risk factors go up. If you eat a lot of saturated fat, you got a lot of stress, your chances for heart disease increase. But you also reap what you sow in spiritual things. If you break God's law, an example, seventh commandment, not to commit adultery. If you commit adultery, what you reap in the home is heartbreak, distress, division, and divorce. So you can apply these principles in all three areas. And so that's our aim, to take a threefold perspective using nature, health, and the Bible, and to see if we can't get an insight into the character of God that perhaps we haven't had before. So even in a garden, we'll go over to our blueberry bushes. You know, you can see by perspective, it's illustrated in picking blueberries. Now, to all intents and purposes, if you just look on the blueberry bushes from this perspective, it doesn't look like there are a lot of ripe blueberries to be had. But if you change perspective, you might see something a lot different. So let's go over and look underneath the blueberry and up at, and then we see something completely different. We see the bush is just loaded with blueberries. But you can't see that from the top. You can only see if you're looking from the bottom. So a different perspective, you know, gives you a different understanding of really what's happening on the blueberry bush. Same is true in health, same is true in the Bible. Multiple perspectives give deeper insight. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 perspectives on the life of Christ. There's a purpose and a plan behind that. You know, it's imperative that we learn to be deep thinkers. You have to go deeper than skin deep. When Samuel, the prophet Samuel, was sent to anoint David to be king over Israel, he looked at Eliab, this is David's older brother, and he thought, surely this is the king of Israel. But in 1 Samuel 16:7, the Lord told Samuel, I don't see as a man sees. You look on the outside, but I look on the heart. We've got to learn to get to the heart of the matter. Even in the garden, when we have tomato hornworms, you can't just look a cursory surface glance. You got to dig deep. You got to look under the tomato leaves. You got to investigate all over the tomato patch if you want to get those hornworms out of your tomatoes. Same is true about getting error out of your life. When you go to the doctor and he says, look, you've got a problem with your shoulder. Yes, doctor, I have some bursitis. Then he offers you cortisone or steroids or something. Dear friends, the question is, why? What is this going to do for me? Is this going to solve my problem, or just going to treat the symptoms? Is this going to mask the symptoms by treating the pain? Well, you got to be a deep thinker. Matthew 18:16, let in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. You want all the different perspectives you can find to be able to evaluate and see if what you're looking at, what you're sensing, what you're thinking is accurate. Because, dear friends, we don't want to be in error. It could cost us our health, cost us our garden, cost us our soul. So as we go to the tomato patch, let's be investigative thinkers. Today, the problem is not hornworms in our tomatoes. The problem is Japanese beetles. So let's walk up to the garden, see what Darlene, my wife, is doing about those Japanese beetles. Now my wife's out looking for Japanese beetles, but you've got to look high and low. You can't just be around gazing. You got to do some investigative work to find these things. Now Darlene, let's see what you have inside the bucket. This is kind of the unsavory part of gardening. If you want to try to get your food organically and healthy, you got to pick the bugs off by hand. And that's the brief introduction. What we want to do is not question to doubt, but question to believe. 2 Corinthians 5:7, we walk by faith and not by sight. We want our faith to be based on evidence. Peter says, 1 Peter 3:15, be ready to give a reason for the hope that's within you. So as we take a look over the next, many, many months, as we take a look, it's a simple view at nature, the book of nature, and what God is doing in the creation. And then in the Bible, we look at the Creator Himself, the things He has done for us, in us, with us, what He wants to do to us. And then we look at our bodies. We're fearfully and wonderfully made, King David wrote. We're going to find some things, I think, but we've got to follow the Bible prescription. If you seek me and search for me with all your heart, you will find me. And that's my prayer and my hope for you and for myself. Have a blessed day.